On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
Wes Craven, one of the most influential filmmakers in modern horror, died on August 30th, 2015 at the age of 76 from brain cancer. His death was natural in cause but struck the entertainment world with the weight of sudden loss. Known for redefining and reshaping the horror genre across multiple decades, Craven's passing reflected the cultural value of horror as a space to confront collective anxieties. In an era when horror had often been dismissed as lowbrow entertainment, his career legitimized it as a form of art, social commentary, and cultural reflection. The immediate consequences of his death were felt deeply across Hollywood and among fans worldwide. Craven was not just a director, but a visionary storyteller whose works like A Nightmare on Elm Street, 1984, and Scream, 1996, had redefined horror for multiple generations. His death created an irreplaceable void, as few filmmakers had the ability to reinvent an entire genre multiple times while speaking directly to the fears of their audience. Industry peers paid tribute by acknowledging how his innovations, from Freddy Krueger's surreal terror to the self-aware satire of Scream, shifted the trajectory of horror and influenced countless successors. Craven's death also amplified his legend. In many ways, his passing mirrored the very themes he explored on screen: mortality, the haunting persistence of memory, and the blurred line between fear and fascination. Just as Freddy Krueger lived on in nightmares, Craven's creative legacy outlived him, embedded in cultural memory and the ongoing production of horror cinema. His absence only highlighted the scale of his contributions, ensuring that his films would be revisited, studied, and celebrated for years to come. Reflecting on Craven's departure invites us to consider humanity's relationship with mortality and memory. His life's work was about confronting death and fear, transforming them into stories that entertained yet also probed deeper cultural insecurities. In a way, his death closed the chapter on a singular voice in horror, but it also immortalized him as a cultural architect. We continue to honor him not only through retrospectives and academic studies, but also through the continued relevance of his characters and tropes in popular culture. Ultimately, Wes Craven's death reminds us that art can transcend mortality. While the man himself is gone, the worlds he created live on, proof that memory and imagination are humanity's most enduring tools in resisting oblivion. Vera Ellen, remembered as one of Hollywood's most dazzling dancers of the 1940s and 1950s, died on August 30th, 1981 at the age of 60. Her death was caused by ovarian cancer, a natural but tragic end for a woman whose name had become synonymous with vitality, elegance, and physical grace. For many, the fact that such an illness claimed someone defined by movement and energy carried a certain cruel irony, highlighting the fragility of even the most seemingly vibrant lives. Her passing reflected broader cultural themes of her era. Vera Ellen's career flourished during Hollywood's golden age, when musicals and dance films served as joyful escapes in a world recovering from World War II and entering the uncertainties of the Cold War. She danced alongside legends like Fred Astaire, Gene Kelly, and Danny Kaye, and her roles embodied the optimism and glamour that Americans craved during times of social change. Yet after the 1950s, her career declined sharply, in part due to shifts in Hollywood's tastes and personal struggles. By the time of her death, she had largely retreated from the spotlight, making her loss a bittersweet reminder of how quickly fame can fade in the entertainment industry. The immediate consequences of her passing were not seismic in terms of industry trajectory, but they did spark reflection on Hollywood's treatment of women during her time. Vera Ellen was often cast for her beauty and technical brilliance, but her personal battles, including health concerns and a life lived under intense scrutiny, pointed to the pressures female performers faced in sustaining public perfection. In this sense, her death amplified her legend by prompting re-evaluations of her contributions, situating her within broader discussions about Hollywood's golden icons and the costs of stardom. In death, Vera Ellen has been immortalized through her enduring performances, particularly her role in White Christmas, 1954, where her astonishing dance numbers remain holiday staples. These moments continue to introduce her to new generations, ensuring that while her life was relatively short and her career fleeting, her artistry endures. Her death reminds us that humanity's relationship with mortality and memory is deeply tied to performance and image. Stars like Vera Ellen become eternal, not because they escaped death, but because film and art preserve their vitality long after they are gone. Through restored films, retrospectives, and cultural commemoration, Vera Ellen remains an emblem of joy, grace, and the bittersweet reality of fleeting fame. Proof that art has the power to outlive even the most ephemeral lives. Jean Seberg, the luminous American actress who rose to fame in Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless, met a tragic end that encapsulated the turbulent socio-political landscape of the 1970s. On August 30, 1979, at age 40, she disappeared from her Paris apartment. 11 days later, on September 8th, her body was discovered in the back seat of her white Renault, parked on a quiet street, wrapped in a blanket with an empty water bottle and a lethal overdose of barbiturates in her system. French authorities ruled it a probable suicide, noting a farewell note to her son that read, "Forgive me, I can no longer live with my nerves." This self-inflicted death, classified as violent in its intent though not interpersonal, stemmed from years of severe depression and paranoia, exacerbated by relentless harassment. Seberg's demise starkly reflected the era's challenges. The height of the civil rights movement and anti-Vietnam War activism clashed with government overreach. As a vocal supporter of the Black Panther Party, donating thousands and advocating for racial justice, she became a target of the FBI's COINTELPRO program. In 1970, agents planted false rumors in the press claiming her pregnancy was with a Panther member's child, not her husband's. A smear rooted in racism and designed to neutralize her influence. The stress triggered a premature birth. Her daughter died 2 days later, plunging Seberg into annual suicide attempts around the anniversary. This highlighted values of the time: the fight for equality versus institutional bigotry, and the vulnerability of celebrities in political crosshairs amid broader cultural shifts toward feminism and mental health awareness. Immediately, her ex-husband Romain Gary held a press conference, accusing the FBI of moral murder and linking their tactics to her breakdown. This prompted media scrutiny, and within days, the FBI admitted to the 1970 disinformation campaign, sparking public outrage over surveillance abuses. Her death amplified Seberg's legend, transforming her from a new wave icon into a martyr for free speech and against state oppression. It shifted historical trajectories by fueling exposés on COINTELPRO, contributing to Senate investigations like the Church Committee, which reformed intelligence practices. These events reveal humanity's fraught dance with mortality, as a reminder that power unchecked can erode the human spirit. And memory, where the powerful seek to erase dissenters, yet society preserves their stories. We immortalize figures like Seberg through art. Kristen Stewart's 2019 biopic, Seberg, revives her activism. Literature like Alan Gurganus's Played Out explores her psyche, and commemorations, such as Iowa tributes in her hometown, ensure her echo endures, turning personal tragedy into collective cautionary tales. Charles Bronson, one of Hollywood's most enduring tough guy icons, died on August 30, 2003 at the age of 81. His death was attributed to complications from pneumonia, though he had also battled Alzheimer's disease in his later years. For a man whose screen persona embodied rugged resilience and unbreakable strength, his passing from natural causes highlighted the universal truth that even the hardest of figures cannot escape the frailties of age and illness. Bronson's death reflected the cultural values of the era he dominated, the 1960s through the 1980s, when audiences gravitated toward action heroes who represented self-reliance, stoicism, and justice outside the system. In films like The Magnificent Seven, 1960, The Great Escape, 1963, and most famously Death Wish, 1974, Bronson became the face of a gritty masculinity that resonated with a public grappling with urban crime, political corruption, and post-Vietnam cynicism. His passing therefore marked not just the end of a man, but symbolized the fading of a cinematic archetype tied closely to Cold War anxieties and the vigilante ethos of his time. The immediate consequence of his death was a wave of retrospectives that re-examined his career. While Bronson had lived quietly in his final years, his death reignited interest in his films, particularly the Death Wish series, which had sparked intense debate about justice, morality, and vigilantism. Critics reflected on how his characters mirrored societal fears of disorder, while fans celebrated his authenticity as an actor who came from a working-class, coal mining background and brought that rawness to the screen. His departure amplified his legend, cementing him as a quintessential symbol of American cinematic grit. In a broader sense, Bronson's death underscores how mortality interacts with cultural memory. Humanity tends to immortalize figures like him through the roles they played and the ideals they projected. His image, laconic, steely-eyed, uncompromising, remains alive in film, literature, and pop culture references. Each rewatch of his films becomes an act of commemoration, ensuring that the man who portrayed ordinary individuals rising against adversity continues to inspire long after his natural life ended. Ultimately, Bronson's death reminds us that while power in life is fleeting, memory preserved through art offers a different kind of immortality. He endures not as the frail man he became, but as the indelible cinematic presence who embodied an era's struggles, fears, and enduring hunger for justice. Valerie Harper, beloved actress and cultural icon, passed away on August 30, 2019, at the age of 80, after a long and public battle with cancer. Diagnosed with lung cancer in 2009 and later with leptomeningeal carcinomatosis, a rare form of cancer that spreads to the brain and spinal cord, Harper defied medical expectations by living years beyond her prognosis. Her passing was natural, yet deeply symbolic. It reflected the resilience and openness with which she confronted illness in an era increasingly defined by public discussions around health, advocacy, and the dignity of life. Harper rose to prominence in the 1970s as Rhoda Morgenstern on The Mary Tyler Moore Show and its spin-off Rhoda, where she portrayed one of television's first truly relatable, independent, and outspoken women. At a time when female characters were often limited to stereotypes, Rhoda stood out as witty, flawed, and authentic. Harper's portrayal resonated with audiences navigating the shifting gender roles of the women's liberation era. Her Emmy-winning performances helped redefine how women were represented on television, giving voice to values of independence and self-acceptance. When news of her terminal diagnosis broke in 2013, Harper responded not with retreat, but with remarkable courage. She chose to share her journey publicly, appearing on talk shows and even competing on Dancing with the Stars. This openness brought national attention to cancer awareness and turned her into a symbol of hope and perseverance. Her candor reflected broader cultural shifts in how illness was discussed, moving away from silence and stigma toward openness and community support. The immediate aftermath of her passing was marked by widespread tributes from fans, co-stars, and cultural commentators who celebrated her artistry and resilience. Rather than diminishing her legacy, her death amplified it, casting her not only as a beloved entertainer, but also as a figure of strength in the face of mortality. Harper's story illustrates humanity's evolving relationship with death and memory. Her choice to live fully, even when facing inevitable decline, embodies the value of confronting mortality with grace. We immortalize her through reruns of Rhoda and The Mary Tyler Moore Show, through memoirs and tributes, and through the enduring cultural archetype of the strong, witty, independent woman she helped define. In remembering Valerie Harper, we are reminded that legacies are not only built on performance, but also on the courage to face life's most difficult truths with honesty and heart. Mikhail Gorbachev, the last leader of the Soviet Union, died on August 30, 2022, at the age of 91, after a prolonged illness. His death was natural, yet it carried profound symbolic weight. Gorbachev's passing marked not only the end of a personal life, but also a final reminder of an era when the fate of the world pivoted on his reforms, diplomacy, and vision for a more open Soviet state. Gorbachev is remembered above all for his policies of openness and restructuring, which attempted to modernize the Soviet Union and ease Cold War tensions. In doing so, however, he unleashed forces that contributed to the eventual collapse of the Soviet Empire. His tenure was marked by unprecedented transparency, freer speech, and a willingness to negotiate arms reductions with the West. These reforms reflected the late 20th century's challenges: economic stagnation, political rigidity, and the mounting desire for individual freedoms across Eastern Europe. By the time of his death, Gorbachev's reputation was complex. In the West, he was widely celebrated as the leader who helped end the Cold War peacefully, earning the 1990 Nobel Peace Prize. Within Russia, however, many blamed him for the chaos and instability that followed the Soviet collapse, from economic hardship to diminished global influence. This duality reflected the tension between ideals of openness and the costs of rapid transformation, a debate still resonant in global politics today. The immediate consequences of his death were an outpouring of international tributes, with world leaders praising his courage in choosing reform over repression. Yet in Russia, the response was muted, reflecting the ambivalence of a nation still divided over his legacy. In death, Gorbachev's legend was amplified as historians revisited his pivotal role in shaping the modern world, particularly his decision not to use force to preserve Soviet dominance in Eastern Europe. Gorbachev's passing underscores humanity's enduring struggle with power, change, and memory. He reminds us that mortality claims even the most consequential leaders, but ideas often outlive the bodies that carried them. Through biographies, films, and public memorials, his image is immortalized as both a reformer and a cautionary figure. Ultimately, his death reflects how societies grapple with complex legacies, honoring those who sought peace while debating the costs of transformation. Gorbachev's life and passing illustrate that history remembers not only victories, but also the human courage to face inevitable decline with vision and hope. Glenn Ford, the Canadian-American actor renowned for his versatility across film noir, westerns, and romantic dramas, passed away on August 30, 2006, at the age of 90 from natural causes. His death marked the end of a life that spanned nearly a century of Hollywood history, reflecting both the longevity of classical cinema and the challenges of aging in the public eye. Ford's career mirrored the evolving values and struggles of mid-20th century America. Rising to prominence during Hollywood's golden age, he often portrayed morally complex characters, detectives, reluctant heroes, and everyman figures that resonated with audiences navigating post-war societal shifts. His performances captured the era's tension between individual responsibility and social expectation, illustrating the nuanced storytelling that defined 1940s and 1950s cinema. Beyond his screen persona, Ford's own life reflected the pressures of Hollywood stardom, including the physical and emotional demands of a relentless studio system. The immediate consequences of his passing were a wave of remembrance from fans, colleagues, and film historians. Obituaries highlighted not only his extensive filmography, but also his enduring charm and professionalism, qualities that kept him relevant across decades. While Ford never sought the limelight off-screen, his death reignited interest in his seminal works, such as Gilda, The Big Heat, and 3:10 to Yuma, reaffirming his influence on American cinematic storytelling. His passing also underscored the fragility of memory in popular culture. Even widely admired actors face the risk of fading from public consciousness without the ongoing preservation of their work. Ford's death illuminates broader reflections on humanity's relationship with mortality and memory. It underscores the inevitability of aging and the way public figures, though mortal, achieve a form of immortality through their artistic contributions. Film, literature, and commemorative retrospectives ensure that performers like Ford remain culturally alive, allowing new generations to engage with the moral complexities and aesthetic innovations of their era. In this way, the legacy of Glenn Ford transcends his physical life, serving as a testament to the power of art to preserve character, ethos, and historical insight long after the individual has passed. His passing reminds us that while death is universal, memory, especially through cultural artifacts, allows human achievement and artistry to endure, highlighting the interplay between mortality, influence, and commemoration in shaping collective history. Isaac Freeman III, better known by his stage name Fat Man Scoop, was a larger-than-life figure in hip-hop, celebrated for his booming voice and unparalleled energy. He passed away on 2024 after collapsing during a performance at Hamden Town Center Park in Connecticut. The cause of death was determined to be natural, hypertensive and atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, highlighting the silent health challenges that can afflict even the most vibrant performers. His sudden passing shocked fans and peers alike, underscoring both the physical toll of a life lived in the public eye and the unpredictability of mortality. Fat Man Scoop rose to prominence in the early 2000s with hits like Be Faithful, which became an anthem in clubs worldwide. His career thrived on collaborations with major artists, including Missy Elliott and Mariah Carey, cementing his reputation as a dynamic force in the music industry. In an era defined by the rise of electronic dance music and the globalization of hip-hop culture, Fat Man Scoop's commanding presence and call-and-response style reflected the communal energy that audiences craved. His performances were more than music. They were shared experiences, moments of collective joy that bridged communities across age, race, and geography. The immediate consequences of his passing were palpable. Fans shared stories and videos online celebrating the joy he brought to stages for decades. In Hamden, a tribute concert honored his life, featuring live performances and the unveiling of a mural and memorial bench. These acts of commemoration illustrate how communities seek to preserve the influence of cultural icons and the emotional bonds they forge. Far beyond chart positions, Fat Man Scoop's legacy lives in the memories of those who experienced his performances firsthand, and in the enduring rhythms of the tracks that defined an era. Reflecting on his death reveals broader truths about humanity's relationship with mortality and memory. Even amidst fame, life is fragile, and yet the contributions of figures like Fat Man Scoop continue to resonate. Through music, visual art, and communal gatherings, society immortalizes such individuals, ensuring that their energy, values, and creative spirit extend beyond their physical lives. Fat Man Scoop's life and passing remind us that while death is inevitable, influence and joy can be enduring, echoing through culture long after the final note is played.